Hi, guys, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Simplicity of God, where we take you through your personal walk with the God of the universe, irregardless of your religion. We are not concerned about whether you are a Christian or whether you are a Muslim or whether you are a Hindu. It doesn't matter. Here on this channel, we don't discuss that. We are only concerned about your own personal walk and relationship with God. Because you're going to have that. God is your father. So why should you not have a personal relationship with him? Why should somebody go on your behalf? You have that right to be able to talk to your father daily on your own. So let's get started. And before we get started with the teaching for today, I will ask you to subscribe, like, comment. And if you're new on this channel, welcome to the family of the Simplicity of God. And don't forget to push that notification button so that every single time we upload a new video, you can be notified. So let's get started. My name is Jehovah. I'm sorry about that. I'm always forget to introduce myself, but probably that's not important. Let's get started. Hi and welcome back. Today's teaching is gonna be we're gonna talk about the four gospel, but I'm not gonna talk about the four gospel in the sense of like looking at each individually because it's gonna take us long. So what I'm gonna do is this: our upcoming teaching for the next 4 weeks, I'm gonna take each gospel and we're gonna dwell in it, and I'm gonna use Bible verses. We're gonna discuss it, and we're gonna obviously study the gospel because the gospels are very important because they talk about Jesus much more in the sense of like a personal kind of walk. Because remember, most of most of the walk or even like dealings with Jesus is discussed in the gospel more than in any other book, I think you know by now. So today I'm kind of gonna put them out there, the four gospel. I'm gonna tell you who they are and the reason for even writing the gospel, because remember there is kind of a question of like, why did we needed so many gospel writers? I mean, wasn't one supposed to be enough? You know what I mean? Most people say that there's a lot of contradictions, but there's really no contradictions, to be quite honest. Because even when you look at a court of law, and I'm sorry that I always have to use the legal system, but I think it's a very good example of being able to put it out there for you to understand it clearly. For example, if you have 4 different witnesses and they all come there and they say the exact same thing, I can tell you right now that the judge will definitely gonna be very sure about one thing, that they probably conspired to say the exact same thing. They probably sat down somewhere together and they discuss what they're gonna say. That's what the judge is gonna say. It's not that the judge is gonna think that, oh no, their testimony is very authentic because they say the exact same things. Because to be quite honest, 4 different witnesses are gonna say maybe kind of the same things, but also gonna say kind of things differently, because they would have probably see things differently from different perspectives. So that's what I'm gonna discuss today. Now, there's 4 gospel writers, and I will start with Matthew. Matthew, as you all know, was a tax collector. I don't need these glasses for now. Let me take the glasses off because I don't think I need them. Okay, oh my God, it's like I need them. Oh my Lord. Anyway, let's continue. So the gospel according to Matthew was obviously written by Matthew, the disciple. He was not one of the 12. But Matthew was a tax collector. You can actually see from the gospel, from the way it's written, that it's very precise and concise and very orderly, because Matthew was a tax collector. So I think you know that Jesus visited Matthew in his house and he got converted, and he did what they call restitution, trying to fix things and so on. So Matthew, so you need to know that, as I said, it's 4 gospel writers, and every single gospel writer wrote with their own perspective, and they have a different audience of who they were presenting the gospel to or the news to. First of all, let me start that with the fact that the word gospel actually means good news, good tidings. So we should be hearing good news. And I think I mentioned this before in my previous teachings about the gospel being good news. So the gospel is not about a very good God who somehow got angry on the way, so he's angry. It's not about an angry God who's out to get you. It's about a loving God who sacrificed his own life to come and get you out of trouble. And as I usually say, if one man, Adam, could put us in a situation where we are, why would one man, Jesus, not be able to fix that? How do we believe that Adam got us into the problems that we are in, but we don't want to believe that Jesus can get us out of that? And in the sense of Jesus, we have to kind of try to fix it, right? Anyway, let me not go back there, but I always want to, some of my messages might kind of have similarities, because my main point on this channel is to make sure that you understand that God loves you unapologetically. He loves you. He wants the best for you. He wants you to be happy. Just like your earthly parents are not giving birth to you so that they can just come and use you. Well, maybe, I don't know. They are giving birth to you because they want to be able to share the love that they have with someone who looks like them, someone who share. When I say look like them, I'm not talking about the physical looks or whatever, because some children don't even look like their parents. Anyway, let's get into Matthew. So Matthew, I'm sorry about that. Welcome back. And as we were continuing on the Gospel of Matthew, as I said, Matthew was a tax collector, and his gospel was primarily written to the Jews, and they were interested in and because he was presenting Jesus as king, they were probably going to be interested in knowing that the genealogy of Jesus from that perspective. And his genealogy is actually given in Matthew 1. Because obviously, as you know, he was the descendant of the son of David in that sense. So that's Matthew. And then we go to Mark. Mark was a close companion of Peter. He was actually regarded, maybe he was way younger than Peter, because Peter always referred to him as my son. So we know that the gospel was written by John, whose last name was Mark. So I think because there were a lot of Johns in the Bible, maybe John was a famous name. And we realized that he had to use Mark, the last name, to be, associated with the gospel. So it was written by Mark, and he was presenting Jesus as a servant. In that sense. So, and this gospel was primarily written to the Romans, and who's interested in knowing the genealogy of a servant? So there's absolutely nothing about, all what was written. For example, what you're going to find was written in the gospel of Luke, I think. So there's no genealogy because, well, who's interested in knowing how the servant was born to begin with? Now, in this gospel, you will notice that there is more miracles than in any of the other gospel. That's because the Romans were very much interested in actions and deeds more than words. So Mark was specifically making sure that he's going to record that. Because remember, like, when you are, because remember, I don't know whether I mentioned, obviously, when you're talking about news, you're actually presenting something that has already happened, meaning that the good news that they are presenting is something that has happened, but they are presenting it to different audience. So they need to consider the audience, even though they are presenting the truth, but they need to make sure they include, because everything could have like happened, but even in a court of law, you know what evidence you are, because you can go, like, that's why they have what they call evidence that is not allowed in court in that sense. They call it admissible. Some evidence are not admissible because like they have nothing to do with what's being presented there. So I think this is what was happening as well. So Mark presents Jesus as a servant, and obviously he presents Jesus to Romans, and he knew what he was going to present, what was important to the Romans. So that's John Mark. And then we are going to Luke. I don't want to say Luke is my favorite disciple, because I think my favorite disciple is Peter, obviously, because he was like me. He was very hyper. Anyway, I don't think it's only the hyperness of Peter that I like. I think I love the fact that he's the only disciple that, like kind of got out of the boat. And it's funny how people say, oh no, Peter denied Jesus. But the fact that Peter denied Jesus shows that Peter was there to be able to deny Jesus. The other disciples were not even there to deny Jesus. They didn't have a chance to deny Jesus because they weren't there. So let's not talk about Peter in that way. Anyway, so this gospel was written by Luke, the physician, the medical doctor. And it's good to know that the birth of Jesus, the record was actually recorded in this gospel. It's good to know that it was recorded by a person who was a physician. And his gospel was written more to the Greeks. And they were very much interested in genealogy. So the record of genealogy goes as far back as Adam. That's how far back he had to go to kind of present this to the Greeks. And in this gospel, Jesus was presented as the Son of Man. So in this gospel, Luke talk about, for example, things that, like, as I said, all these four gospels talk about, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences in how they present the gospel. I think I said it before, Luke is the only person that actually recorded Jesus sweating blood, because he's a physician and he knew exactly why he was, what that meant. So that's, and obviously next week I'm gonna talk about, if like from next week on, I'm gonna present the four gospel. I'm gonna start with Matthew. Next week is Matthew. I'm gonna go according to the order in the Bible. I'm gonna start with Matthew. I'm gonna go with Mark. I'm gonna go with Luke, and then I'm gonna finish with John. Anyway, so the next gospel writer is the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John, as I usually mention, is written by John, obviously, but that's the only gospel where authorship is not so sure. It's not that they are not sure whether it was written by John, but whether it was written by John the disciple. I personally don't believe it was written by John the disciple, but it doesn't really matter whether it was written by John the disciple or, as I suspect, by Lazarus, who changed his name to John and write the gospel, because both were close to Jesus. So we are concerned about whether the evidence is like authentic, and the fact that it was written by whether it's John the disciple or, as I suspect, Lazarus, is still the same thing. So okay, there's a little bit of an interruption. Let me come back to you. Thank you. Hi, welcome back again. I'm sorry about that. And the last part is the Gospel of John. And John presents Jesus as the Son of God. I think the Gospel of John is different from the other three Gospels. I think you must have noticed. And he is writing from a perspective of a savior. He's writing and he's writing to the audience is actually every single person. Remember when I was saying the Romans, the Greek, whatever? But with John is writing to every single person. I think we can also notice that John is presenting Jesus in a whole way of perspective, like maybe because he's also writing as a son of God in that sense. And I think by son of God, I'm a daughter of God. You are a son of God if you're a male, but son of God in reference to Jesus is different. It has a connotation of, being God, being 100% God, even though he was 100% human. He's God himself, So he's presenting the gospel to everybody who believes, to state that Jesus is the Messiah, Jesus is God. He is the one who starts with, in the beginning, the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh, the Word was made flesh. That whole sentence is just to say that Jesus was there at creation. He is the beginning, he's the end, he's everything, he's God, he's man, like everything in that sentence. So now we come to the end of this teaching, but as I said, the whole reason for the gospel is to give people good news, right? As I said, the word gospel means in Greek, where it was translated to English, obviously, mean good tidings, good news. And in Hebrew, it's the word gospel in Hebrew is bisar, B-I-S-A-R, and it means good news too. So now that we come to the end of this, all I want to say is that next week I'm presenting the gospel according to Matthew, and we're gonna look at some verses and how and it's good because it kind of fits the whole reason for this channel, your personal walk with God. And we're gonna look at how even the disciples were walking with Jesus personally in that kind of sense, and what that meant to them, and the whole scenario of how did they personalize that. And you need to know that the disciples were human, so they were kind of acting up too, but remember they have like first-hand kind of, should I say first-hand, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say first-hand information because it was not information, because they were literally working with God himself in that sense. But they were having like that first-hand personal walk with God, I would say, yeah, in that sense. So now that we come to the end of this, I just want to ensure you again that God is not angry at you. God is happy about you. He's happy he made you. He is proud of you. He's not looking at you messing up. He's not looking at, or he's not waiting for you to mess up so that he can come and punish you. When you mess up, he's the kind of father that say, it's okay, Jehovah, stand up, it's okay, let's move on, it's okay, I'm here, I'm holding your hand, let's go. God is not the kind of father Um, oh my God, you know what I remember now? I wanted to say something, and it's not like in a personal kind of way, but maybe I should say God is not an African parent in that sense. But when I say African parent, I don't mean it in a kind of bad connotation. But you know how strict African parents are, right? I'm an African parent, and I can tell you a joke right now. And God is not an African parent in that sense. He is sometimes an African parent because even when we look at both this, like the African parent way of, like the African way of raising children, and I don't want to say the Western way of African of raising children. I'm probably gonna say the Canadian way of raising children, because now I've been in Canada for a while and I know how Canadians raise their children and so on. But I can tell you right now, both sides has a lot of flaws. The African way of raising kids doesn't mean it's perfect or it's bad. Just as much as the Canadian way of raising children is not good as well, or even bad in that sense. Both, me personally, being an African parent, I do mix the two. I realize that there's a lot of ways how Canadians raise their children that I thought, oh my God, this is good. Let me kind of switch it in. But I'm definitely an African parent in some senses, because this is what I wanted to share with you. So, you know, April Fool Day or something, April 1st. So King David, my 12-year-old back then, 11, I don't know where he got this like very red ink, and he put it here like on his kind of like knee, like, and it was like blood. It was really looking like blood. So he called me and he has a knife. I don't know, like he probably got the knife in the kitchen. No, he didn't have a knife, he had a scissor. So he called me screaming, and I came, and as I, oh my Lord, my first reaction was not to say, oh, it's okay, you're gonna be okay. That's the African way of like, if you know, that's the Canadian way of like, a Canadian would probably say that. I literally, it's not even a joke, it's not funny. I literally was like, King David, where did you have the scissor to begin with? Where did you got it? Why were you using it? And before I could do anything, King David was like, mommy, I'm joking, because my African reaction was, and I think that's where you need to understand African parents when they are coming from. My reaction at that moment was that, yes, I care for this child who's now bleeding so much, but I think automatically it sinks into like, I need to, why did he have the scissor to begin with? Why was he having it? Why was he using it? He's not allowed to use, like, and why, like, how did he do that even? So my reaction was to immediately reprimand him so that he doesn't do it again, so that he doesn't hurt himself again. So when African parents are acting that way, it's also because of caring, because sometimes there's a narrative that is being created as if African parents don't really care, and that's why they are so strict. Actually, they are so strict because they care, you know, and they just care in a different way in that sense. You know what I mean? So at that moment, and then I'm like, oh my God, Kingy, you know, and then I realized he was joking. I was so angry at him. But what I'm trying to say when I'm saying God is not an African parent, I'm only trying to say that he's not waiting to, like, in that sense of like beat you up because now you mess up, like I almost did with King David, because I'm in that sense I was like, so that he doesn't do it again. Yeah, so God is not waiting somewhere for you to mess up, but when you do mess up, God is there ready to pick up your messes and to help you fix them. That's God. So with this, we come to the end of this teaching. So wait for next week for the Gospel of Matthew. We're going to enjoy it. And as I usually say, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and also to push that notification button so that every single time we upload a new video, you are ahead of the game so that you stay connected to this wonderful growing family where we discuss your personal walk with the God of the universe. Thank you. Bye, guys.